Good evening, everybody. It's 6 p.m. in the wine country in upstate New York. I'm Sam Kimball from Crush Wine Experiences. Thank you so much for joining us for a special virtual session of Day Trip to Wine Country presented by the New York Wine and Grape Foundation. We are here for a holiday tasting of bubbles, reds, and dessert wines just in time for the December 2023 holidays. We're going to sample 4 outstanding wines from 4 excellent New York State wineries and hear about the ways those wines can make your holiday that much more special. Each wine will be presented by its maker, and we will discuss the optimal food pairings for each selection as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We've got a lot of ground to cover. We're going to hear about growing trends in the Finger Lakes, which is the largest of the 4 regions in the great state of New York. And I want to welcome everybody and thank you so much for joining us. If you would, right now, hit the chat and tell us where in the world you are tuning in from. We'd love to be able to share that with the audience and with our 4 winemakers. We're excited about this session. I do want to show where we're going to in terms of geographically in upstate New York, the Finger Lakes region, for example. And I want to make sure that everyone has a sense of our location. So bear with me a moment while I do that, and I will put that on screen. So upstate New York, if you can see this, we're going to be focused mainly in the Finger Lakes. We do have one winery represented from the Adirondacks wine region, but you can see in this shaded section of this state of New York map, there are the Finger Lakes, and the greater region and AVA of the Finger Lakes is right in there. I will also show, while we're there, the Adirondacks. You can see this shaded green area towards the top of the screen here, and that is where one of our wine producers is located as well. So we're going to be 100% New York State and covering some really terrific producers that I'm excited to be hosting tonight. For those of you who don't know, here's what is sort of the salient facts about the Finger Lakes. They're less than a 5-hour drive northwest of New York City. It's a beautiful, bucolic region. Some would say is yet to be fully recognized from a wine perspective, although there's been a tremendous amount of progress made in the last 10 or 20 years. In terms of wineries, there are more than 140 wine producers throughout the Finger Lakes AVA, which is the American Viticultural Area. The majority of those wineries are around the beautiful Cayuga, Keuka, and Seneca lakes. And finally, while the region has been propelled onto the world stage by its Rieslings, tonight we will see that there are other wine styles that are truly excellent and other grape varietals, especially for holiday celebrations and all the different pairings. So that said, I would be remiss not to point out again that one of our featured wine producers this evening is up in the Adirondack Mountains AVA, which is another of the 10 plus AVA regions around the state. So with that, I want to get started. Without further ado, I would like to introduce our guests. We have with us tonight Edward Miller, winemaker at Glenora Wine Cellars, Peter Weiss from Weiss Vineyards, the winemaker, Aaron Royson from Three Brothers Wineries and Estates, he's the winemaker, and Brad Casacci, the winemaker at Adirondack Winery. Welcome, welcome, guys. It is great having 4 winemakers at once on the show.
Great to be here.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. Really happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect timing for the holidays. I want to kick things off, however, with a discussion about the state of winemaking in upstate New York. Finger Lakes have seen substantial growth in recent years, and so have the Adirondacks in terms of activity and wine growing. And Edward, I want to start with you. What are the key priority items that you see as a winemaker working in the region?
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, the region has really undergone some incredible growth. So I actually started my wine career in the Finger Lakes from 09 to 12. It's where I got my feet wet. in the industry, and then I left and traveled and worked other places for a number of years until coming back in 21. And even in that 9 years that I was gone, just the growth in the industry was incredible. The quality of the wines was incredible, and so I'm extremely excited to be back in the region, to kind of be part of the growth and the genesis of the Finger Lakes wine. I mean, lots of credit to the generations before us who've put in a lot of hard work in this region and set some great foundations. But it's really nice to see the region being recognized on the world stage right now. That being said, I mean, some of the challenges are just with all this growth. You know, we have a limited amount of areas where we can plant vineyards. We have to stay pretty close to the lakes for the really optimal vineyard sites. And so, you know, trying to expand vineyards and source enough grapes and, you know, make the amount of wine that we would like to and that we think that we can sell in the market is definitely a challenge. So, I mean, a lot of the wines you're tasting are pretty small batch. You know, we're still very much handcrafted up in this area. And it is really a testament to the passion and dedication of all the winemakers that we're focusing in like this. But yeah, I mean, is growing the region is number one priority, I think.
And what are the, do you see as sort of the key next step for solving some of that? How do you meet growth problem?
Well, I mean, I think there's been really great strides made in figuring out the varieties that work really well in the region and how to grow them. The viticulture, I think, has gotten much better even in the last 10 years. The fruit quality is really great. I mean, we do have a lot of vintage variation here in the Finger Lakes. It's part of winemaking in this area. But we're learning how to work with all that vintage variation, really express wines from the vintage, so you have a sense of not only place, but time. And so I think continuing that and really teasing out the varieties that work best, grow best, is very important to the overall success of the region.
Got it. Peter, I want to sort of toggle over to the issue of not only the growth of the region, but what's happened in terms of changes with climate change. How has climate change affected your process to winemaking and how you approach it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I should ask the question from where. So I came over in 2017. I'm German. Well, I came over in 2005 from Germany, and since 1995 we see difference in climate change in all over the Rhine regions where I worked. In Germany, when I went to school since 1995, there was only good years, like warmer years. In California, where I worked in Sonoma, for sure, there since in school, Davis, since 1995, there was always warmer days, warmer years. And Finger Lakes here is the same way. So when I left, when I grew up in Germany, that is, you know, in the 80s, you know, I was young, and there was a time where comparable now the Finger Lakes are. I'm from the Mosel River, so great example. My grandfather always was saying there's a potential of a good year if the Riesling flowers on Kirmes, what was pretty much our wine fest in town, and that's June 29th. So now in the Finger Lakes, that's a time in average where the grapes, the Riesling flower. So pretty much where the Mosel was 30 years ago, that's where the Finger Lakes are now, like from climate. So winemaking wise, not much changed since I came over, but it's really getting a little bit warmer is a really benefit for the region. So we can make some great Rieslings, but also great reds, the Cab Franc that are tasting today.
So, and when you say it's similar to what happened to Mosel 10, 20 plus years ago, again, it's really just an issue of how that's affecting which grapes are growing well because of warmer weather, and that happened earlier in Germany.
So we have to say, you know, the the Mosel River where I'm from was always one of the coldest regions. And to be honest, 20 years ago in the Finger Lakes, I'm not sure, the overall quality wasn't there yet, not how it is right now. With climate change, but also with more know-how growing, and winemakers have a play of it as well. But starting as a vineyard, and then with climate change and the winemaking, that's where we really, have the really good quality up here. Winemakers in Germany are jealous because they don't have the cool nights during harvest like we have here to preserve the acidity to make some cold climate wines, either red or whites. So that's what we have here in the Finger Lakes. What's really makes difference to be a cold climate region.
And is it a combination of the cool nights allowing the grapes to recover as they're growing, as well as a longer growing cycle, more natural residual sugar that allows for a more robust flavor profile, or is it really just the cool nights?
So it's since 20 years ago from the Finger Lakes, we have longer growing period.
Mm-hmm.
But the cold climate allows the fruit to mature without having the sugars. So we can make delicate Rieslings with 10 alcohol, 11 alcohol, and have really matured the fruit. The fruit that you can find in the glass, where let's say in a hotter climate, you get the alcohol, like 14 alcohol, and you don't have the fruit matured yet. Just like the sugar came before the fruit.
Right. Interesting. Very interesting. So in some ways, it is the change in the climate has been a benefit
for the Finger Lakes. I would say absolutely.
Aaron, talk a little bit about evolution over the last 10, 20 years and how the perceptions of upstate New York wines have changed. I mean, do you see more people viewing the region as more than just Riesling?
Yeah, I came to the Finger Lakes in 2002 from New Zealand, and I had a very specific gaze on what wine was. And what struck me coming to the Finger Lakes was the diversity in varieties, from the vinifera to the natives to the hybrids. And I think as the generations have come along, and the region has matured, and the understanding of the diversity of what we have. I mean, Three Brothers, we grow Barbera, which is what the Tawny Port that we're tasting tonight is made out of, but we also grow Zweigelt and Gruner Veltliner, as well as Riesling and Pinot Noir, but we also grow Chambourcin and Velvet Muscat. So there is a acceptance that's taken time. I think the gatekeepers don't have as much sway as they used to, and the general public and the consumer is becoming more informed, and they're becoming more comfortable and confident in trying things that are a little bit out of the norm. We're always going to do well with those classic varieties, but I think because we have this track record of this diverse consistency and this broad acceptance, and a wine region that was based on a reaction more than a passion, we have this unique Yankee ingenuity, and I think that's where these other varieties, outliers or less known ones, really have taken a place shoulder to shoulder.
And which grape varietals have emerged beyond Riesling as sort of the leading players in that change?
Oh, I think Gruner Veltliner is a good example. Lemberger, Blaufränkisch is another one. You're seeing Catawba and Diamond being reworked in different styles. There's an acceptance of sweeter wines now that, alongside dry wines, that was completely different perspective 20 years ago. I think the quality of the fruit has improved exponentially, along with the understanding from the winemakers. The skill set of the winemakers now has grown, and it's no detriment to who were the forerunners, but it's just this understanding of how to grow and adapt. But with Cornell and the University of Minnesota growing these varieties that are cold hardy and disease resistance, and to Peter's point about climate change, like these are incredibly important things to take into consideration. So these newer varieties, things like Frontenac or Itasca or Arundel, they're going to start having their setting at the table as well. And it's one of the exciting things about the Finger Lakes is that there's really no rigidity to what is considered upper tier. The public likes what they like, but there's an acceptance that's growing more and more as we change.
Is there one indigenous grape that sort of stands out amongst the indigenous options?
Oh, it all depends. I mean, there's always Concord. But I would say, there's some interesting things being done with Catawba. It was kind of one of the original varieties that led the big movement decades ago. We have varieties like Cuba White that have been a strong player in the background and have been really a strong support. That's a New York original variety that was developed, I believe, in the 70s through Cornell. It's kind of this blending of different varieties that we see this uniqueness that you can't really put a finger on it. And that's kind of the big thing about the Finger Lakes, is that it's hard to kind of say one thing or another. Like, we're lead strong with Riesling and Cabernet Franc. Chardonnay is a strong player as well, but every winery has a different star in their portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of what makes it fascinating.
And what about the hybrids? Is there a standout from amongst those, or is that still sort of very new?
Yeah, I mean, that's, you're starting to see the growth in the state as a whole, this proliferation of ability to grow in regions that were not suited for the European grape varieties. And now with hybridization, you can grow grapes in any corner of the state. And, also in these little microclimates in the Finger Lakes that, might not necessarily been suited for Riesling or Chardonnay or Pinot Gris, but they can plant Frontenac Gris, or they can plant Marquette. There was a new release this last year of a Riesling Cuba White clone crossing. It was very impressive on what those wines are capable of doing. So yeah, it's always changing.
No, it's a super interesting thing, and a couple of people have mentioned in the chat, Cab Franc, obviously, but Saperavi, and then Vidal. So I think there's a number of, and Vignoles. I mean, people are adding. So if you have a favorite not Riesling or Cab Franc grape in the state, put it in the chat. It's very interesting to see. And I think, Aaron, that was not a really fair question, because as you point out, every winery is going to have either an indigenous or maybe also a hybrid that they're working with, and there isn't really a unified, like, there's one leader across those categories in the state. And obviously the traditional grapes. I mean, somebody just mentioned Sauvignon Blanc. I've seen a little less of the Pinot Noir up there. Somebody put Pinot Noir in the chat as well. So, but very interesting. I did a session with Juan Michele Martinez, who was the head winemaker at Martha Clara, now RGNY. last year, and he talked a lot about some hybrid grapes that he was working with in a winery upstate, and it's super interesting to hear. So, Brad, what is your perspective on all of these things, all the above, varietals, climate change, growth in the region, as you see it from sitting in the Adirondacks AVA?
I think Edward, Peter, and Aaron have very valid and great points. I think you are seeing the evolution, and it kind of ties into climate change, with New York State grapes and what the Finger Lakes region is able to produce, what they produce well, and with that, I think the consumer is kind of recognizing, New York State can produce something other than Riesling, Cab Franc, Chardonnay that is likable to the palate. But at the same time, Peter mentioned climate change, and I think it is helping out New York State, but it's also for winemakers. There is a kind of I don't want to say a learning curve, but a curve of we can see it when grapes are harvested, that even the past 5 years, keeping track of when something gets harvested might have been, early October 5 years ago, and it's trending towards late September now. And as winemakers, we have to keep track of that and keep track of our lab work to see that, the fruit that it might have been 5 years ago is evolving into a way that, we can still work with, but we just have to be on top of it and really focus on that specific vintage of what is coming in. And then, Edward was 100% correct. If you look at the quality from, 20, 30 years ago, it is vastly improved over that time. And we're really hitting our stride now where we're producing great wines year in, year out, whether it's a great year for, weather-wise or not. I like to think that with education and the history of the Finger Lakes region, we're improving every year.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And in the last session that we did, which was about Thanksgiving wines, and all New York State producers, obviously, about a month ago, we talked about some of the incredible accolades and recognition and awards that have happened in the last few years, and even in the last 12 months with New York wines. I don't mean to in any way diminish Riesling, because the Rieslings are great. And in fact, one of the big feathers in the caps of the winemakers in the region is the Rieslings that every other year or so go up against the French and the German Rieslings in international competitions and win and take the #1 spot. So I think that's something that a lot of people are not aware of. The other thing that I would point out, and this sort of, kind of piggybacks onto what we were talking with Aaron about in terms of grapes and Riesling, is that there's still a misconception amongst consumers, even here in New York State, that all Rieslings are sweet, which of course they're not. And a lot of these award-winning Rieslings from the region are dry. So, I think that there's still a ways to go, but the progress has been incredible. And the recognition has been tremendous. All right. So, I think Mary, you had a question. If you can put it in the chat, that would be great. And I think we'll start tasting some wines here. We're going to start. So imagine we are setting the table for the holiday meal, the holiday dinner, lunch, whatever you're doing in your house. We're going to start with sparkling wine, and we're going to start with a Blanc de Blanc from Glenora Wine Cellars. And we're going to let Edward lead us through that particular selection. Tell us a little bit about it, how it's made, and of course, what are the awesome optimal pairings for the wine. So I'll put it up on the screen, but Edward, take it away and tell us a little bit about this amazing Blanc de Blanc you have.
All right, happy to do so, Sam. Yeah, I mean, oh, what can I say? This wine makes me happy. This is our 2015 Blanc de Blanc. So it is traditional method. So fermented in bottle, disgorged, all in the same bottle. A lot of credit, and actually all the credit for this wine goes to my predecessor at Glenora, Steve DiFrancesco. He was the longtime winemaker there, and he built a really great sparkling wine program at Glenora. So I've been a very big beneficiary of that, including having some of these delicious vintages to work with and to sell. So this is, of course, 100% Chardonnay as a Blanc de Blanc. The fruit comes from Glenora Farms, which is actually right next to Glenora Winery. It is a different owner, but they're our biggest fruit provider. And that is on the west side of Seneca Lake, just about 10, 12 minutes north of Watkins Glen. So kind of southwest side of Seneca Lake. It was, harvested on September 14th, which I think was it's pretty typical for sparkling wine picks in this area. Really went classic with this one. I mean, we're at 18.7 Brix at pick, 3.18 pH, and a lot of the other technical details. But we wanted a full flavored, really traditional sparkling wine. Now, this has actually been in tirage since August of 2016. And this wine was disgorged within the last 6 months. So we have a really long time of contact with the lees and tirage. And so that really gives the wine some beautiful richness and beautiful mouthfeel. And I think that combined with the still nice acidity of the wine is going to make this a super fun wine to pair. After our discussion, Sam, I opened a bottle and sat down with it and really tried to think of what I would want to pair with this wine, because given the texture and the kind of the brioche notes and a little bit of caramel and spice, some of my knee-jerk reaction pairings for this I don't think might be perfect. One thing that came to mind with this wine and I'll take you kind of through appetizers and through the whole meal. But I've had a roast bone marrow with on brioche with a little bit of fig jam. I think that would be killer pairing with this. The oily unctuousness of the bone marrow combined with the bubbles and the acidity would be great. Even like a seared foie gras, I think, would be really good as well. Then you could go into any sort of puff pastry or buttery pastry as well. A puff wrapped brie, baked brie with some fruit compote on it, I think would be a delicious pairing with it. And then the lemoniness starts to come out more, and then some like Granny Smith apple as well as it opens up. So, I could see even pairing this, moving on to a main with like a duck breast with kind of an apple reduction or an apple sauce. And, moving into dessert, I mean, absolutely a creme brulee would be amazing. Really any sort of, again, a fruit tart with that kind of buttery, flaky pastry dough, I think would be a beautiful combination with this wine. Or, I'm also happy just to sit here and drink it on its own, because it does have that texture and that richness that just makes really every sip a delight for me.
I gotta say, bravo. This is exquisite. I can't tell you, I can't give it enough compliments. It has none of the sour notes that you sometimes get in even some champagnes. It's got beautiful texture and a lovely aroma, and the taste, characteristics and profile are just, it's delicious. You can drink this wine just on its own. But it is a legit proxy for a nice champagne. And so I'm kind of blown away by this one. Really, really great
Oh,
selection.
thank you. I appreciate that.
I kind of liked your original suggestions of oysters and a really rich brie cheese, but I think, you know, the bone marrow, that's pretty exciting too. That's a pretty awesome.
I'm
Awesome.
gonna have to try that one because I think that would just be a match made in heaven with this wine.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That is great. Well, Edward, thank you. Awesome stuff. All right. So we are going to go next. We're going to go to the Adirondack Winery, Midnight Bubbly. Brad, this is your baby. I'm going to put it up on screen, but tell us a little bit about how this wine is made. And also, you know, how you see it in the context of the holiday meal and pairing.
Yeah, you got it. So unlike Edward's method, this is a completely different way of making sparkling wine. The original idea for this wine was we were opening up a new tasting room and winemaking facility in May of 2021, and we said we need to have a wine to celebrate that. We originally it started with some blends and they kind of fell out of favor, and we went back to the drawing board, which took us a little bit longer. And our grand opening came, and we still did not have anything in bottle. So we went back to the drawing board, found a new blend that we liked, and we eventually put it into a bright tank, which is typically what a brewery would use, and we force carbonated it, and we had it ready for New Year's of 2022 for our first vintage that we did. The one that we are tasting tonight is a 2022 vintage, and this year's vintage of 2022 is 50% Chardonnay, 25% Saval Blanc, and 25% Cayuga White. Alcohol is 11.1%, and it is 0% residual sugar. Our blend changes a little bit here and there, but for the most part, it's going to stay around those percentages. Like I said, we throw it into a bright tank and we force carbonate it, very similar to beer. I like to say it's a fun light wine that good for celebrations like New Year's, which is kind of where the name came for it. And you know, when you first smell this and you get the aromas, you're getting lemon peel, you're getting apples, you're getting pineapple. But what I really like is when you taste it, it has this beautiful star fruit flavor that I really enjoy. Star fruit, not just because it's a unique fruit, but almost has like a waxy taste to it. But you also get some grapefruit with the acidity and some lime in there as well. I would typically pair it with a macaroni and cheese, but you could also do something like oysters. You could also do, you know, some fattier meats like a fried chicken, a steak even, to really enjoy it.
Yeah, I love it. It's got the Saval Blanc gives it a little bit of bite, a little bit of funkiness,
For sure.
which I love. And you know, I wasn't sure. This is the first I'm tasting it right now for the very first time. I would also think about this one with a really good fresh white clam pizza with butter and garlic.
There you go.
You know, it would just cut through that the deliciousness of that. But also a really nice choice for an aperitif without any pairing. Similar to the first one, but yeah, great selection. Love it. And also we get a little bit of a promo code for this one on your website at AdirondackWinery.com. You can get a little bit of off of each bottle with the promo code you see on screen here, CWXP23. So really great selection. Bravo, Brad. Good stuff.
Thank you.
All right, so we're gonna move right along to the Weiss Cabernet Franc, which Peter, this is. I like to tell people, and correct me if I'm wrong. I like to talk about Cabernet Franc as the unofficial red wine grape of the state of New York. And this is I think a great example. I'm going to be tasting it now for the first time, but yeah, I mean, really interested to get your thoughts on how you make this and what the process is, and of course, what to pair it with for the holidays.
Yeah. So this is not estate grown. We have actually we have our growers on Seneca Lake for this one on the northern part. In that area, there's more limestone. So the wines get a little bit bigger. Seneca Lake also has more sun hours than Keuka Lake, where we are from. And harvested around, was between two growers. So harvested around end of October. Like to push out as long as I can to get the ripe flavors that you see in this glass here. And yeah, coming in the winery, we crush the grapes, cold soak them, depending on the temperature, but like 1 or 2 days. If the grapes are not too warm, and then starting the fermentation. Red wine we ferment on the skins, and that's how we extract the color, but also the tannins. We do punch downs 3 times a day. So punch downs are getting the cap, the skins, the seeds that coming up, punching them down to make sure there's no air coming to it, and pretty much the immersion, the skins, to get also the extraction of the color out. And then after with this one, we do a little bit extra extension of the fermentation is around 10 days, and then we leave it around 2 more weeks on the skins. And yeah, then we're pressing it, gently putting into barrels where the malolactic fermentation continues, and then finish, and then we let it age for 2 seasons. That's around 16 to 20 months, depending on when we're going to pull it out of barrels. And then yeah, that pretty much is a winemaking part of it. How I would pair it, so I know this Christmas we're going to pair it with some venison, and we have with some venison and spätzle. The sauce, we pretty much thicken the sauce with the wine. That really makes a nice, like, dark sauce, but what really goes well with the spätzle, and it give a touch of sweetness to it. Having some canned pears, to give a little bit of flavor, but it goes also with all dark meats. You think of dark meat, Cab Franc goes with it.
I love the aroma. It's got a little bit of like sort of funky bite in the aroma. It's pretty aromatic, and the balance and the mouthfeel and texture are just outstanding, Peter. This wine is just, I don't know if that comes through the process of the so many days of the punch down 3 times a day, but I mean, it's just super balanced. I might also pair it with lamb myself, or even veal with a sauce. For those of us who don't know, explain what spätzle is.
Yeah, spätzle is a German specialty noodle, and how you make them. It's yeah, of course, flour. It's the easy one, but then you push them over a board, like a screen, and then it falls into hot water, and then that's how you cook it. But yeah, it's just really like a fluffy, especially it soaks up a lot of sauce. Well, I'll be able to soak up a lot of sauce, and that I'm a sauce person, so I like just like sauce and spätzle.
Yeah, no, it's love this. Now, was this you guys were named Winery of the Year in New York State, I think in last year in 2022, is that right?
Yeah, so we really new. We started the winery started in 2017. I'm 6th generation winemaker, and we're quite humbled and honored that we won Winery of the Year last year. The governor called us and congratulated us. It was our biggest reward so far.
And many of the people watching may know this, but that's Winery of the Year out of 450 wineries in the state of New York. So that's a pretty awesome accomplishment and recognition. So congratulations. This wine is fantastic. I'm assuming this wine is not only in retail, but is also gets picked up on premise by some restaurants as well.
Yes, also restaurants have it. Yeah, we do distribution, but also if somebody wants to have the wine, you can order online. We ship almost in any state of America.
Yeah, and with the promo code Crush Holiday, 15% discount on any 4+ bottles. I will tell you, this is a wine that if you want a great red wine for the holiday table, you'll need at least 4 bottles of this to satisfy the appetite for it. Great stuff, Peter. Thank you so much. All right, so we're gonna move along to dessert wine now, and Aaron from Three Brothers. You have a tawny port, and dying to hear about this. Give us a little bit of a background too, for the uninitiated or the semi-initiated. What is a fortified wine, and how this wine is made, and why it's in the category of being a fortified wine, which of course port is. So
in 2017, I started the fortified wine program at Three Brothers, and we make 2 fortified wines, both from Barbera, from our estate vineyards. So we make a ruby and a tawny, somewhat similar in the front end production with the tawny and ruby, but the fruit is machine picked, brought in, crushed. It's inoculated with a cultured yeast strain, and because Barbera gets pretty ripe in the Finger Lakes, even, we'll typically pick it at like 24 to 26 bricks, but it doesn't necessarily have a high amount of tannin in the skins, and it has some pretty high pitched acidity. So it really lends itself for this style wine. So fermentation will start going, and about halfway through, we will arrest fermentation with fortified spirits, so a grape neutral spirit, and we'll try to arrest it a little bit before or a little bit over the sugar that we want to finish it at, because the spirit tends to dilute the sugars. So we will do that, and with the ruby, it's just arrested and then pressed off and aged in stainless. Whereas this tawny port, we arrested it, and we did not do any extended maceration with the skins after fortification. We only did 1 punch down a day, mostly to encourage the caramelization of the sugars and the fruit and to lessen the tannins. So after it was pressed off, it was barreled down in neutral French oak, and then it was aged in 60-gallon barriques for 5 years in a room of 85 degrees Fahrenheit temperature. And then we pulled the barrels out and did our blending, and kind of came to this assemblage. It was a very interesting route to run with this variety. I have not tasted many Barbera tawny ports. It seems to express itself in a very ripe way, and a lot more fruit driven than you would find with those earthy, inky style of tawnies that the Portuguese have. It's really representative of the nature of Three Brothers Winery, where we're kind of outliers with different varieties that we grow. And it was really kind of, it was the first one we made. And since then, we, have subsequent vintages. The program is still growing strong. This was just bottled this past year. So it's still somewhat new in terms of bottle aging, and from the flavor profile that it does have, it has really seemed to develop pretty intensely, but in an approachable way. I think sometimes tawnies can be a little bit rigid and kind of big and blustery, and this one is, I wouldn't say light, but it's just very fruit driven, a lot of depth, a lot of length, and the alcohol really seems to blend well with that acidity and the sugars.
Yeah, it's super delicious. I love this. It's got some spice notes for my palate. I just took the first sip a moment ago, and the flavor is just a great equilibrium or balance of the different flavor characteristics of this port. What do you like to? If you're just sipping it, it can be great as it's on its own, but what do you like to have with this in terms of food?
Well, I think because the acidity is still like nice and brightly pronounced, it works well with like some Chev on some toast points. It works really well with like an almond, like a roasted almond cake. It goes well with you can even go down, if you're going to go for a savory route, you can do Peking duck with it as well. That orange profile really seems to balance out that like cranberry plum profile.
Mhm.
But you're talking with things that have a little more richness, foods with more richness to them, and even if they're a little bit sweeter foods, that acidity really can elevate the sugar and the flavors in the dish and the wine as well. So, and it's one of these wines that because it is so complex with the components that have been derived from the aging and the concentration from the heat and the time, it does things that other wines typically don't do. It's certainly not an everyday wine, but it has its place, and it's nice. It's a nice little wine.
It's perfect for the holidays. You have so many
Yeah.
great desserts and other things, and in addition to the cheeses, the cheese. If you had it with a rich cheese, or as you said, even Chev goat cheese. Mark had a question in the chat. What made you pick Barbera initially?
The idea behind it was that we are one of the only producers in the Finger Lakes that grow Barbera, and it is a challenging variety to sort of mitigate the acidity in a red wine. Even in its native world where it grows, the acidity is always pretty high pitched, and it has high sugars and low tannins. And it seemed like was a good fit for that profile of holding on to that sugar that would easily accumulated during ripening, but that because the tannins were lower, it would be able to age in a unique way versus making ports out of the Bordeaux varieties, or we don't really have too many Spanish varieties here, but it seems to be really cooperative with the aging process, and it blends really well. Even when we have been working with later vintages, potentially doing non-vintage blends, it seems to showcase uniqueness. So Barbera, we were just trying to figure it out. I mean, we made all kinds of fun things out of Barbera, like a sparkling red Barbera that was method champenois. I mean, it's a curious variety. I think it's a lot of fun to work with it. And, you know, that's the thing. Like this Tawny Port, there's a lot of work that went into it, but it's a celebratory wine, and, you know, it's accessible and very approachable to almost everyone, but it can also be understood and appreciated by people that have knowledge when it comes to fortified wines.
Yeah, no, I love it. I mean, a great compliment to the selections that we've tasted and profiled here for the holidays. So I want to just roll back for a second. And I think the next question is, how do we, if you're interested in getting these wines, how do we get them? And the answer is very simple. We go to the websites of the particular producers here. So I'm going to roll through the screens that we just saw, and then with one last screen with all of the URLs. But so for the Glenora Blanc de Blanc, it is glenora.com. Very easy. For Adirondack, you go to adirondackwinery.com. Use the promo code CWXP23 to get some savings on each bottle. And then Vice, you're going to go to vicevineyards.com. Peter, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but I think the W in German is pronounced like a V in English. So
Yeah, that's correct. You're good, Vice.
that's the extent of my German, but yes, but it's WEIS vineyards.com, and use the promo code Crush Holiday. And you need this Cabernet Franc for your table for the holidays. And then, of course, the Tawny Port from threebrotherswinery.com. That's number 3brotherswinery.com. And use the promo code TWBS, like Three Brothers Winery. Actually, TBW, Three Brothers Winery, ships, SHIPS. And just for the avoidance of doubt, here are the 4 websites that you want to go to. And with that, I want to say thank you so much, guys. This has been an amazing education for me, and I think for a lot of people watching, all about amazing wines and extraordinary winemaking that's going on in upstate New York. Also want to thank everybody for tuning in. I'm going to end with some words that I have read before, but I think that they're very apt given the growth and the recognition of the wine region that is New York, but the fact that it's not yet fully recognized in all the ways that it should be. So we'll end with a tribute that was originally from the New York Wine and Grape Foundation about the New York State wineries and the wine growers. And here's how it goes. They were supposed to never make it big. They could easily move and grow in perfect conditions, but they didn't. They leaned into adversity and came together as a family to make something out of nothing. Their future is not in algorithms. It's about customers, growers, and our members. It's for the people and by the people. Their collaborative ethos is irreverent in and of itself. They are an intrepid band of outsiders, and they're in this together. And as a family, they believe in what they do. So I want to say, well said on the part of the foundation. Thank you so much, guys, for doing this tonight and for setting the table for our wines and selections and opportunities and options for the holidays. And thank you, everybody, for watching. We will see you soon. We'll be back with more New York wines. February 7th, we're going to do wines for Valentine's Day. And I want a special shout out to Joanna, who's in Europe, who's hit the chat a couple times and said, gosh, I wish we could get the wines over here. I'll leave that to our 4 panelists to figure out how to skin that cat. But yes, thank you, Joanna, for tuning in. And it must be quite late there, but great to see everybody. Happy holidays, and we will see you soon. Have a great evening.